You are listening to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs, so sit back, relax, take your black pill, and enjoy the show.
Dude, I don't know what is going on.
You
with
are
that
listening
intro
to
lately.
This Week in
Well, it's Clown World. So
Okay, we're doing it
clowny.
live.
Yeah, fuck it, we'll do it live. Yeah, that is an excellent way to start the show. Shaboing boing, cats and kittens. It's This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs. I'm Hobbs. He's Ben. You're in Clown World. Welcome to the honkening. How you been, bud?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I don't know why we have these technical issues lately. Trying a new area where I'm sending the podcast from, so maybe that has something to do with it. Kind of a fun week, I guess. What do you want to lead off with?
Well, you went right into the we'll do it live, so let's talk about the I don't even know what you would call these video leaks that have been coming out of Fox News and Tucker Carlson. They're like supposed to make him look bad, but they definitely do not.
I mean, some people are theorizing they're deep fakes even. Have you seen those? Glorious Nebraskan internet. Yeah, thanks, Ed.
Yeah. Some people are saying that they're deep fakes, but the fact that Tucker hasn't come out and said that they're deep fakes, I'm going to assume that they're the real deal. They make him look incredibly relatable, like he's just a normal dude. And I don't know what Media Matters was thinking, releasing these, like, ooh, we got him saying stuff and things, and you watch him, you're like, he's just a guy.
Oh, he made a sex joke. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. He did it, and he was so completely self-aware. Like when he said that some guy's girlfriend was yummy, and then he's like, just kidding, in case they take it off the bird. He's like, Media Matters for America, go fuck yourself. So he knew that they were watching.
What is Media Matters exactly? That's just some self-policing group for journalists, supposedly, or I don't even know enough about it.
Oh, you sweet summer child. Media Matters for America is George Soros's media watchdog, but all they do is just like watch Fox News and then cope and seethe.
Got a comment. Turns out that Tucker is that guy, pal. Yeah. Still no news out of what Tucker's up to, as far as I've seen.
I think he's laying low, taking it easy with his family, just enjoying the time off before he kicks it into high gear.
I'm sure he got a big fat severance.
Actually, with what maybe the things have changed, but Megyn Kelly was saying last week that he's not actually fired from Fox. He's still under contract, which means that he's not allowed to like go and entertain any outside offers or anything. And I think that the whole point of it was to just kind of bench him for the upcoming election cycle because he is such a big and influential name. I don't know exactly what's going to do. I know that he's got lawyers that are working on getting him out of that contract, though.
A couple more details have come out too. I made that joke that he cucked Rupert Murdoch, but he got fired like a week after that whole situation where he went to his house. That happened the week before he got fired. I don't know if we mentioned that last week. That's a little more coincidental, I think.
Yeah, Ed over here says that his one Twitter post had higher ratings than the entire lineup combined. That one Twitter post, that 2.5-minute monologue, had more viewings than all of cable news combined, not just Fox. So good on him for that.
Yeah, and back to that leak. I mean, some of the stuff they leaked, it just seems so stupid. It's like they were just reaching so far to try and get something. Like the one where he was shit-talking Fox because their website sucked.
Yeah, and everybody's like, it does suck. Like I got the Fox Nation app on my Roku TV up there. My mom's got it. It's just on my TV. That thing seems to work okay, but as far as I know, the website is god awful.
Yeah, and I don't know what the point they were trying to make with that. Like, hey, don't hire him. I have no idea.
I know, and he's bringing up legitimate technical issues to his employer. He's like, "Hey, your service could be better. It kind of sucks. You shelled out all of this money for this online streaming service, and nobody's using it because your website sucks. It might benefit you to fix that."
Yeah. I mean, and it's completely different situations from other people who left. Well, I don't know the details behind Megyn Kelly leaving. Bill O'Reilly was he was kind of a scummy guy anyway, so nobody really gave a shit.
Yeah.
Do you know what Megyn Kelly's details were? Why she left?
Not 100% sure what her deal was. That was a few years ago. She left Fox News for one reason or another. I think if I and I'm probably wrong, but I believe that she left around 2016 because Fox was really getting heavy into the Trump pushing, because he was the Republican nominee. So Fox obviously has to go with and she was like, this is too cult of personality, I think. And then she left, and then she got a gig on The View until she said that little kids dressing up in, like, a little white kid dressing up as Black Panther wasn't that big of a deal. And I guess that's like verboten or something. That's like one step away from blackface. Chill out, Al Jolson. But yeah. So
up, they had another Pocahontas incident. The professor out in California, did you see that? She claimed that she was like Mohawk tribe on her mom's side and Micmac on her dad's side. Turns out she's like 99% European. Meanwhile, she's like the chair of the Native American Studies. Native American Studies this, degree in Native American Studies, and turns out she's white as me.
Yeah. If being a minority was such a disadvantage in this country, you wouldn't have so many white people pretending to be one.
Yeah, you don't find anybody pretending to be white. At least I don't.
Nope. Although you do have a lot of people accusing people who are minorities of being white.
Yeah, they accuse them of being white. Today, it's a white holiday. It's Cinco de Mayo. It's got mayo in the name, so it's obviously very white. But yeah, you brought up the point I was trying to make. Nobody ever fakes being white.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's, what do we got over here? We got some chats going on.
Yeah.
Josh Rodriguez arrested for felony fraud and identity theft. Who's Josh Rodriguez?
Yeah, I don't know. Congressional
Cherokee tribe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Scientific Libertarian asked earlier, we like to hit the comment. It's got a pick for LP president yet? Who cares at this point?
Yeah. The LP candidate, no matter who it is, I know that Dave Smith is running. He's making the rounds. He's hinting at it. He's been hinting at it for the last 4 years.
What to make the point that the LP party's a joke besides nominating a comedian?
Yeah. Although maybe he's trying to cash in on those free tax dollars because Ukraine's president's a comedian.
Right.
Seems to be working out pretty well for him.
High test scoring Asians are white now. That's correct. I forgot that Asians are considered white presently. Running for president on the LP ticket, he said. Yeah, I don't know. The LP's made itself so inconsequential at this point that I don't think anybody's even going to give a shit.
No.
Just through they've had so many changes in direction on what they wanted to do, change in leadership. I just don't think anybody gives a shit what they think.
Not right now. Not in this hyper polarized. Yeah.
And the country's so polarized. I think the LP missed its heyday. Probably the GOP fucked up the liberty movement when they shit all over Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Whereas you have in the Democrat Party, they embrace their I guess I'll say the extreme, if you could call the Libertarians and the GOP the extremist wing of the party, which I think that wouldn't be too much of a stretch. The Democrats embrace their extremists and look where they are with their policies. They've pushed a lot of them, but the GOP pretty much told them to fuck off and just drifted towards the center.
Yeah. Well, that's the big problem is, like I said last week, the Democrats are in the driver's seat with their foot to the pedal to the metal, and the GOP is in the passenger seat going, slow down there, Democrats. There's a speed limit as we head towards a cliff. And meanwhile, the rest of us in the country are hogtied in the back seat trying to scream through a gag to just stop. Stop.
Yeah. I mean, the Tea Party, remember the Tea Party when the GOP shut them down? You had people protesting over taxes, over excessive financial spending. And there was a kind of a bit of an intersect between the Tea Party and the Occupy Wall Street. And they kind of, yeah, I know, they kind of saw that and they shut it down right away. I mean, imagine, what if instead of BLM protesting every time there's some sort of civil liberty thing and they're funded by dark money, what if the Tea Party was still around every time some shithole city or a state at their legislature increased taxes? You had a Tea Party out there protesting with paid protesters, burning shit in the street to lower taxes.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party thing, it's funny that you should mention that, because I just heard something the other day. Maybe you heard the same thing. I forget where I listened to it too, but you can go back through the archives of the mainstream media at the time that the Tea Party and the Occupy movement were just getting their legs underneath of them. And there was a flat line at near zero of racial stuff in the news. And then as soon as the Tea Party and as soon as Occupy Wall Street started to find common ground on things like government overreach, privacy, taxes, war, all that stuff, you just suddenly see a near vertical spike of divisive language within the mainstream media in regards to class and race. And that is how they tore both of those movements apart from each other and then began to atomize them within themselves. That's really around the 2011, 2012 timeframe is when the identity politics thing really kicked off inside of the media, because the Occupy movement was a rainbow coalition of gays and straights, blacks, whites, Latinos, left wing, and the Tea Party was the exact same thing on the right wing, and they each had their different focuses, but there was a lot of Venn diagram overlapping when it came to get the government out of personal business. But as soon as they started saying that, black people can't be friends with white people, and white people can't be friends with black people, and the straights are out to kill all of the gays, and God help you if you're a tranny, all of this stuff, that's when everybody started tearing each other apart over stupid, inconsequential shit. And meanwhile, the whole Rome burns.
Yeah, that is where I'm going to say the downfall of anything liberty related goes, and that's about the same time as Ron Paul too. They realized how big a threat it was and sunk it. If something had just changed a little bit, like the GOP had embraced what the Tea Party was saying, hadn't tried to silence Ron Paul, we'd be in a completely different state than where we are now.
See, that's where I got to kind of push back a little bit. The GOP, they didn't embrace what the they didn't embrace what the Tea Party was saying, and they didn't embrace the Ron Paul movement, but they tried to co-opt it. You had a lot of newer Republican senators and congressmen come in. Ted Cruz is the one that immediately comes to mind, that jumped onto the rhetoric of the Tea Party about lowering taxes and getting the government out of your life. And he was saying it a lot, but when the rubber hit the road, they didn't follow through on any of it.
Exactly. They brought him in to shut him up. They're like, all right, well, you're here now. Go sit in the corner and shut up. You're with us now. But they didn't adopt any of their stances. like when the Democrats, started going full on socialist, they started adopting their stances.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I don't know if it's just because the Democrat extremists were louder, or because the Democrat extremists had the backing of the metropolitan areas, whereas the Tea Party was largely rural, so they didn't have as much pull and money within the GOP. But no idea. Also, the Tea Party had to jump through hoops for permits to protest, which they even tried to comply with. Well,
yep,
that was probably a mistake.
Yeah. Well, the reason that the Democrats embraced their extremist left-wing side of their party, whereas the Republican side only paid lip service to it, was because they're all going towards the same direction, towards more power for the state. The Democrats can afford to embrace and implement the socialist policies that the extremists in their party are trying to implement, because that gets more power. The Republicans can't embrace the extremists, the real people in their party, because that takes government power away from the government. So they can talk a good game, like, oh, we're all about tax cuts and deregulation and blah 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 blah, and they do nothing at best and the opposite at worst.
Well, that just says that the whole current system's fucked and is never going to be fixed. So,
yep.
Which is where we're at. I think Ed says, I think it died even earlier during Perot's run, when they changed the debate rules to exclude third parties on percentage grounds. Yeah, and they moved that percentage around too. I mean, the LP got close. I mean, they actually did meet for getting Gary Johnson into the debates, but then they were just like, oh, well, it's higher now. So that's what they can do to keep him out.
Yeah, that's what I say when people say, like, here in Nebraska, it's one thing. If you live in a purple state, or one that's just like slightly Republican or slightly Democrat, then I would say, if you're going to vote, then vote for the lesser of two evils, hold your nose. But if you're in a deeply, deeply partisan state, and it doesn't matter which way, like if you're here in Nebraska, the Republican takes Nebraska like 75-25. So voting for the Republican is a wasted vote, because the Republican is going to win. Voting for the Democrat is a wasted vote, because the Republican is going to win, and your vote is not going to matter. But voting for a third-party candidate, like a libertarian candidate, does matter, because 5% national vote gets matching FEC files, or matching FEC funding for that party, and access to the debate stage and ballot access and all of that other stuff. So while the national popular vote doesn't matter in electing the president, it does matter in who you see on the debate stages and who gets that federal funding in order to make their campaigns easier. And that was actually the entire crux of the argument for my run for Congress in 2020. Well, I went on a radio show, and he's like, "Why should people vote for you?" And I'm like, "You vote for me, not for me, but for more options in the future." And the guy's like, that actually makes a lot of sense. I laid it out exactly like that.
Like you're going to spoil the vote for any Democrat candidate in the district you were. I mean, it was like,
no,
it's like 80-20 where you're located.
Nebraska's unique in that regard. Well, not unique. Maine does this too, but we have almost an electoral college within our state too, because our congressional districts are divvied up by the vote. So you could be like, Omaha votes Democrat and the other two districts vote Republican. And then so the Democrat gets one electoral college vote and the Republican gets two. So I think that every state should do that. Wouldn't that be wild?
Yeah, I don't know how Nebraska managed to get that through the power structure. I think they had a close presidential vote, maybe with Bill Clinton or something, and the GOP panicked and wanted to split up the votes, but now it's coming back to bite him in the ass. My presidential run single-handedly cuts Trump paradigm. Yeah, so all the way back to the original comment, that's what we think about the LP, I guess. Not real excited about it. Pretty probably pretty much dead. I mean, I don't know if it's on life support or it's just gonna. I mean, the LP initially started out as just a bunch of dudes kicking around political theories. It kind of went on a run and gained some momentum and started gaining seats, and they had some state legislature seats. There's a lot of elected officials across the country, but it seems like it's come full circle and it's going to turn back into a debate club of people that want to kick around Austrian economic theory, but nobody gives a shit about it.
Yeah.
I never understand these libertarians that are like, oh, well, did they read this book? You should read this book. Nobody wants to read the fucking book. Your average person doesn't want to read a book to figure out why libertarian's better for them.
Yeah.
And that's the direction that seems they're going. They're doing like, I saw that the National Party's doing like a lecture circuit with Austrian economists and economists and people from the Mises Institute. It's like no average Joe's gonna give a shit about that. It's just like a mutual masturbation tour.
Yeah, which is it's unfortunate and it's fortunate at the same time, because that sort of stuff was the reason that I was attracted to the LP in the first place. Was the Ron Pauls and the policy wonks and the economy stuff was just like, this stuff is brilliant. Why are we not doing this? And then I get involved in it, and then after 2016, everybody had a brain aneurysm or something, and the economy stuff got pushed out of the way, and the social stuff came up, and next thing you know, you got half-naked weirdos waving dildos around, throwing glitter at each other, and you're like, what the fuck happened? And then the economy nerds put in the work, got elected again, and the dildo-waving glitter mongers decided to take their ball and go home. And rather than just, put in the work to get back in charge, they decide to file spurious FEC violate. I mean, it's so ridiculous what they're doing.
I don't know how the dildo and commie stage got worked in there, because you had to get people elected stage, and then the dildo and libertarian socialists came out of nowhere, and that blew everything apart. I don't know if that and you'd think the dancing naked man was some sort of government op to fuck up the LP, but no, he just was a dancing naked guy. That's all he was.
Can't put Bitcoin in a G-string, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I mean that blew all their momentum right there. Of the get people elected party. Those people were like, well, fuck it, this is a joke. And then that's where the hardcore people that want to just make it a debate club and talk about economics is, which it's probably which is fine, but it has no place if you're a political party that's supposed to get people elected. I don't think. Maybe be better as a super PAC. I have no idea.
Some type of a Washington think tank that gives policy advisements to libertarian-leaning GOP members like Rand Paul or something.
Yeah, at this point, just wrap it up and start a super PAC, I guess. I mean, there's no coming back. I mean, they ran off for some reason, some of the doers in the party stuck around after the commie and dancing naked man phase, but they're gone now. You're just filled up with all the Mises caucus, lecture circuit types.
Yeah, which I enjoy, but I'm a weirdo.
Yeah, it's not a place, but it just doesn't make a very good political party. Nobody.
No.
Your average schmuck doesn't give a shit. It goes over his head, and obviously people don't have any care to learn about the economy, as you can see the shape we're in.
Yeah, 5-second sound bites are what win or break an election, not 30-minute lectures on Austrian economics.
Nobody wants it. Yeah, and speaking of the economy, another bank failure on its way, I guess, isn't it? PacWest.
Yes, and
it's interesting. It seems like all these failures are located on progressive coastal strongholds.
Yeah. And then another one like First Republic or something also go under last week.
First Republic got bought out by JP Morgan. Yeah. And they were New York area.
which
Uh,
was they had to exploit some type of a loophole in order to do that, because the Securities and Exchange Commission normally would not allow JP Morgan to buy a bank of that size because of antitrust laws. But because the bank,
well, the too big to fail stuff. I mean, they don't want one bank owning so many assets.
Mhm.
But here we are. You know, they were at the limit already,
Yep.
and the feds are just like, well, it's all right. You can tax some more on there. I think they've gone from like 10% of all controlling all assets to 12%, which is pretty scary.
Yeah, it's very scary.
And that's just a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the reason these banks are failing is because people aren't sure their money's safe in them, these little small banks, and they're putting them in banks like JP Morgan and Chase because they're like, well, they're not going to fail. I'll put 2 million bucks in an account there because I don't have to worry about it. The feds
Mhm.
aren't going to let them fail. Now they're really not going to let them fail. So it's just going to keep adding on.
Until they do fail, because the end goal here is to usher in the central bank digital currency.
Mhm.
And the harder the crash is, the more violently it disrupts normal people's lives, the more eager that they will be to usher in this sort of uh, panopticon social credit system that the CBDC is going to bring in. You know, it'll be just like the Great Depression when they wanted to round up all of the gold. They used the Depression as the catalyst to round up people's gold and start issuing fiat
Mhm.
currency at 10% fractional reserve banking rates. Then we went off of the gold standard because of a big recession in the early 70s or whatever it was, 74. Because there was a financial crisis that they took advantage of, and every single seems like every generation or two, we have one of these financial crises that can be avoided. We know what to do to avoid them, but they let them happen anyways because it it ushers in a new form of monetary policy. Went from the gold standard to fractional reserve banking and fiat currency to going completely off of the gold standard to shit, what happened next? I mean, just one thing after another until we got to, you know, the petrodollar, and you got to uh just everything. Now it's all digital currency anyways, you know, ones and zeros in a computer. The actual amount of like physical cash is a fraction of the money supply, and they're going to let this
Well, I
happen.
don't even think they need to let it crash to make that happen. I think they let JP Morgan get a hold of enough of the money. The feds say, all right, well, you can have above 250,000, but if you're a customer, you have to use GovCoin or whatever we're going to call it. And then it's insured. So the other banks will have an option, but to follow, if JP Morgan's like, all right, we're doing GovCoin, you can put as much money in here as you want. The government will insure it if you're on GovCoin. All the other banks are gonna make, well, we're gonna lose all our money to JP Morgan or the other big
Mm-hmm.
banks. We don't do GovCoin. It'll just be a domino effect.
Yep. So I think
And
that they want to collapse it though, because they want people to embrace it. If they do what you just described there, people will begrudgingly embrace it. But if something big
Mhm.
happens, something catastrophic happens where it's not just GovCoin is a way out, but GovCoin save us is the mentality of most people. That is what I think that they want, because they don't want to have that little sliver of doubt in the back of people's minds that, you know, oh, should I have held on to my physical dollars? Should I have invested in Bitcoin or some other type of crypto? Should I have had offshore foreign currencies in the exchange or anything like that? They want people to run to GovCoin with
Mhm.
open arms, save me from myself, or whatever.
Yeah, kind of like URVs in Brazil. I don't know. Do you know URVs?
No.
You might have to expand on that, Ed. We're too dumb to know what URVs are. JP Morgan's about to be in violation of their maximum holdings. I think they are in violation. They'll have to sell to remain. I think they're in violation. The government said it's okay.
Yeah, they were at maximum, and I think that the loophole was that because the bank failed, they could snatch up the bank's assets and debt, and that was
And the
okay.
government took over the volatile shit. They just got to keep the good stuff.
Yeah, there was
So we'll all
some
pay
kind
for
of
it.
some kind of legal fuckery that went on in there that
Well, and I saw something that said maybe their math was wrong, but the amount that the taxpayers paying for all the bad debt that JP Morgan didn't have to take is about $600 per person. Something stupid. You know, because they got to keep the good assets, none of the bad ones, and the government's just writing those off and paying for them. Unit of real value, basically how they trick the country into stopping hyperinflation, basically the non-monetary reference currency. That sounds fucking. Oh, I don't know if I'm froze or Hobbs is froze, but it looks like Hobbs froze. So he will be right back, hopefully. There he is. I'm trying to get Hobbs back in here. He's in the lobby, but I can't add him into the stream. So just hold on, Hobbs. And Ed is going to talk shit about Nebraska Internet again here. Let me get. There you are.
Okay, what? Yeah, so yeah, I remember hearing about the URVs. It was like if I remember what I heard correctly, it was like a parallel currency that was exactly what he said. It was a parallel currency to, like, you trade in this instead of the Brazilian. I think they use like something called like a peso or a bolivar or something. I don't know.
So they just came up with a currency and were like, it's worth this much.
Yeah. Came up with a parallel currency issued by the same central bank. That's like, this is a currency. It's one URV equals 100,000 bolivars or whatever, and so you can trade in the URV, and then at the end of a certain amount of time, it's redeemable for its value in the regular currency. I mean, it was a scheme.
Well, it's like I saw a TikTok. It was like, for all you people saying nothing backs the US dollar, this is, and it shows like 6 jets flying in formation over 3 battleships and a carrier, and it's like, yeah, that's spot on. I'm glad more people realize that the dollar's worth $1 because we say it is, and we'll blow you the fuck up if you don't agree.
Bingo.
So I don't know how they were thinking a currency that just is worth $1 or is worth a Bolivian dollar would have worked out.
Brazilian real. Yeah, Ed over here says you'd be paid in URVs, which were tied to fixed commodities, and they eventually tied the real to it. So that's
they're actually a little bit ahead of their time, because that's what a lot of people do with shitcoin. They're tied to some other asset. Let's all move to goldbacks over here. Yeah, it's an option.
Yeah, that just sounds like a currency recall with extra steps.
Yeah. But goldbacks are legal tender in the state of Wyoming. I know that much. There's actual businesses that will take them.
Yeah, I would love to have alternate currencies around here that make sense.
Well, several states have done it, made gold legal tender, but who's gonna? And goldbacks is a way to do it. For those of you who don't know what they are, you should go check them out on the internet. It's kind of neat how they do it. But I don't know how you're going to pay legal tender in gold at any place. Drag Queen Navy dollar. Yeah, we did get into that. You saw that one, did you, Hobbs?
I did, and my expectations for the Navy were low, but holy shit.
The Navy's already gay enough. I mean, everybody rags on them if you're in the military. And then they pull that shit. I mean,
it just
on the Air Force for shit, but
yeah, it just feels like all of these institutions doing this from corporations to now branches of the military. It's like an angry mother with a spoonful of bitter medicine. It's like, you're going to take this and you're going to like it. It's going to suck, but when it's done, you'll be fixed.
I mean, the Navy's always been really fucking gay, though. I mean, like, you ever see what their ceremonies were when they like cross the equator? They'd all dress up in drag, and there's King Neptune and a giant baby. You go look at some of the hazing things they used to do back. I mean, this was all the way up to like the 70s. They were still doing this shit.
Yeah.
And it went away, but I guess it's coming back. All the drag in the Navy.
We passed the equator. It's time for the gang sodomy. It's like, is this some type of a hazing ritual? Yes, hazing ritual. Hazing, exactly.
You gotta go. When you're going down Wikipedia rabbit holes, go read about that ceremony. It's nothing compared to what this drag queen kid did. That's for sure. You know, everybody joke what 60 sailors go out, 30 couples come back.
Yeah. The enlisted uniform alone. Yeah, the Cracker Jack.
The Cracker, yeah. Then they got their onesies, their adult onesies. I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a pass just because it's the Navy. If it was the Army or the Marines doing this, I'd say roast them.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Marines are a part of the Navy.
They're the men's department, right?
Well, you know what they say. You know why the Navy has Marines on their ships, right?
Huh.
It's because sheep would be too obvious.
Yeah, I mean the optics on it are bad considering the current climate, but pass from me. It's Navy being Navy, I guess.
Yep.
And I'd like to circle back to the bank thing, where I said they're both on the banks failing around the coast. This just kind of hedges off my comment, I can't remember, it was a week or 2 weeks ago, that a lot of these companies on the coast were just like adult daycare for progressives. And these banks were just like money laundering to get it into the pockets of people in power. And this just further shows that the whole tech sector, metropolitan tech sector, was just a money laundering scheme to get money to progressives in power.
Yep.
Is what I'm thinking. And there's no way you could do this on a conservative side. You couldn't start Joe's Plumbing out in the middle of Nebraska with 300 plumbers who just sit around doing jack shit.
Yep.
It'd be too obvious.
Oh yeah, it would.
When you have Twitter with how many employees were there when Elon took it over? 10,000 maybe.
If not
they're
more.
down to under 1,000 and still functioning. I mean, how many businesses were like that on the coast, I wonder?
Just about everything in tech, from what I can tell. That is exactly what it is. It is money laundering, where you get 10,000 fresh out of college from their indoctrination. You get them in there.
That's a key point.
Freshly indoctrinated into left-wing ideologies. You give them a 6-figure-a-year job doing absolutely nothing but basically adult daycare, and you get 1 or 2 people in there to like stand around the water cooler and be like, "Oh, hey, have you heard that Gavin Newsom's running for re-election? I wish I could give him more than $5,000, but the FEC says I can't do that. Hey, you want to give to Gavin Newsom?" And then it spreads like wildfire, and then you got 10,000 people giving $5,000 each from their 6-figure disposable incomes. It's money laundering, and the sad thing is the people having the money laundered through have no idea that they're patsies in the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the progressives. Bravo, perfect scheme over the last 50 years. You take over the education system, you indoctrinate. You have these tech companies not doing shit. All these any venture capitalist company. Probably, it seems like they don't do shit. They just have a bunch of employees on the payroll collecting money. put it into pockets, get them in power. Because, even though our government is bullshit, it's still, people still have to think that it's happening legitimately. So they couldn't just, push money to these people without laundering it through actual workers. It'd be too obvious. You do it this way and it looks like it's, it's organic.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way you could do the same thing on the other end. I mean, you have you start a factory with a bunch of bullshit workers in middle America to get a bunch of rich rednecks to vote GOP. It's going to be obvious. You still got to output a product.
Yep.
You still have inputs and outputs, but if you're a tech company, there's no inputs or outputs. It's just a bunch of guys sitting on computers.
Yep.
So bravo, perfect scheme.
And you end with the what is it called, the Pareto distribution, where you have like 20% of the workers do 80% of the work, and when your entire work is just sitting around writing bullshit code to keep Twitter.com running, yeah, you can do that. It's
perfect scheme. Good on to them for figuring it out.
Yep.
Hopefully now that it's come crashing down, it's going to change the landscape going forward. Especially, if AI takes off and those get replaced. AI doesn't vote yet.
Yeah, it does.
But,
it will.
So maybe this might, I don't know what your thoughts are on stop the steal stuff, but maybe they had to see it was coming. They had to figure out a different scheme to make it work. So they've been working on how fucked up the election system is and playing that card.
Yep. Unfortunately, the solutions staring you right in the face. Same day voting, paper ballots, open counting, poll watchers. That's why they won't happen. Voter ID.
Yeah. Voter ID. I was on the fence on that one, but I mean, it's so easy to get an ID. With you can get them online. There's no reason not to. Even the people that they say voter ID would disenfranchise, they've talked to them and they're like, yeah, it's bullshit. What, you think I can't get a driver's license?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy. But so they're laying the ground. I'm curious to see what they come up with next, because the progressives seem to be the people pulling the strings in the progressive party. The progressive movement seem to be the galaxy brains compared to what's going on at the GOP and the conservative movement.
Well, you have to get creative when dishonesty is your stock in trade. When you're doing things the way that they're supposed to be done, when you're honest and work within the system as it's designed to be worked within, things just kind of go on autopilot. But when you try to play games and find loopholes and work the system, you have to be a very, polymath genius out there coming up with creative ways.
Maybe that just appeals to the libertarian in me. I mean, I'd like to see the system getting fucked with, but it's just the wrong people doing it.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so frustrating, is you're supposed to be able to trust these systems, trust that they're secure. And that is why the right has such a difficulty with this, is because the right venerates the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the various institutions that make up this country. The left wants to see them destroyed. Do you know who James Lindsay is? Have you heard the name? He gave a speech in front of the EU Parliament where and it's brilliant. You'll have to look it up on YouTube. It's about a half an hour long. But he gave a speech on the EU Parliament explaining the genesis of what we call woke today and how it relates to Marxism, and how and why the woke that we see in Western society today can be traced back to Marxism, and how it is an offshoot of Marxism. And when they say that it's not Marxism, they're completely full of shit. It's a great speech, and he basically summed it up as you take a look at anything that you want, and this is speaking from the point of view of the wokies. He's like, wokeism can be summed up as call everything racist that you want to control until you control it. And he says that's exactly what Marxism was call everything you want to control bourgeois until you control it.
Mhm.
And that's basically everything that's going on. Is the left wing is they're gaming the system. They're calling everything racist or sexist or homophobic or any of these other stupid pejoratives that they use until the people that make up those institutions are cowed to the point that they hand the reins over to them. And then suddenly it's not racist or sexist or anything because it's theirs now. They've captured it. And that's what they've been doing for the past 100 years, if not longer.
Yeah. And, during the winter, I have a weird sleep cycle. I sleep like 2 smaller chunks. So I do internet gaming and I get on at weird times. So I run into a lot of Europeans and they're just basically sick of the woke. That's all they get exposed to when it comes to America is the woke shit coming out.
Yeah.
They're just sick of hearing it, and then the people in their countries, America's culture, kind of is the mainline culture around the world in a lot of places. And then the people in their country try and apply the same woke bullshit around them. And it just doesn't work. Like when, what was it? Norway tried to say that the Suomi people were the indigenous people of the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they don't Americans can't understand that white people are indigenous in places.
Mm-hmm.
Britain's had the same problem. They were talking about issues with indigenous people in Britain. They weren't talking about Celtic Brittonic people. They were just talking about people of color and calling them indigenous. And the rest of the world's getting sick of just hearing our shit. And I don't know what it's going to do to us. I mean, we're just a joke on the world stage at this point.
Yeah. That's that was another part of the James Lindsay speech. Because he was talking to the EU Parliament, and he's like, why is this idea around slavery, which is a very American centric view, is like, why does that apply to you guys? He's like, George Floyd overdoses on fentanyl and dies in the back of a police car or on the street next to a police car, and there's riots and Black Lives Matter in London. He's like, how does that compute?
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with you people, and yet it's here because the cultural Marxism or Western Marxism, he's like, if you don't like the words cultural Marxism because that's anti-Semitic somehow, he's like, so we'll call it Western Marxism instead. He's like, why does any of this apply to you? It's because it's the same thing no matter where it is. You find divisions within society and you poke them and you prod them until the people that are overseeing the institutions of the countries that you are in capitulate and hand you the reins. And then suddenly they're not whatever you were calling them earlier.
Yeah, I was surprised how many Europeans know who George Floyd even is. They just got beat over the head with that in BLM in their news. I couldn't believe it. It's like, why are they trying to wedge that into Europe? It didn't make any sense at all. Like you just said, Germany doesn't have they have the issues in Congo, but they don't have a slave past. Yeah. Sweden doesn't have a slave past. They enslaved English people, but it seems like England's gotten over it.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at what's going on in Ireland right now, right? If there is any country, any Caucasian extraction country in the world that has no right to be browbeaten with the racial identity politics, it's Ireland. They did not ever have a colonial past. They did not have an empire building past. They did not have a slave trading past. They were on the receiving end of all of those things throughout all of recorded history. And yet there is a UN plan right now to force them to take 4 to 5 million refugees from the third world. Ben, do you know what the population of Ireland is right now?
I'm going to guess it's close to 4 to 5 million.
Bingo! There it is, right there. So are they proposing that the Irish are going to double their population, or are they proposing to replace the Irish? And oops, that's racism's. Can't talk about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to say Irish people should pay reparations at some point for slavery. And, that's been kicking around too a lot. Cities are doing research into what is San Francisco figured out that they should have to pay $600,000 per Black person for reparations. I mean, how are they just the logistics of figuring that out are mind-boggling. I mean, what if the guy's grandparent immigrated from Nigeria? Does he still get a reparation?
It's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to have people arguing about it. For some weird reason, and I don't know why, because I have never searched this out. I have never even thought about it or spoken about it out loud. But for some weird reason, the YouTube algorithm lately has been pushing me videos of Black people reacting to Thomas Sowell lectures on the truth about slavery. And I've watched a couple of them, and yeah, you need to look some of that shit up, because it's like, I had no idea. And when Thomas Sowell gets to the part where he's like, yeah, there were Black slave owners in the antebellum South, and they're like, what?
Oh, yeah.
What?
Oh, and I couldn't believe this story made mainstream. Some West African country, I forget what it was, but they were demanding money for artifacts that maybe England had, or that were taken from England, or were taken to England, or end up in England somehow. And a bunch of African Americans said, no, fuck you guys. You're in power from selling slaves to white people. It's like, wait, you can't acknowledge that. You're not supposed to say that. And it was like not a BLM group, but like maybe a Black aligned group was saying that, fuck this monarchy. They're direct descendants from the monarchy at the time that sold hundreds of thousands of Africans into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I can't believe, one, they acknowledged that, and two, the mainstream media printed an article about it.
Yeah. That's that. When people say that the British need to pay reparations due to slavery, before our Civil War even kicked off, I think it kicked off in 1852. So about 12 years before our Civil War to end slavery here, the British Navy began patrolling up and down the west coast of Africa to capture slave ships and send them back. So if anybody can be thanked for ending slavery, it would be the British.
Mm-hmm.
They gained the lion's share of the thanks for ending institutional slavery in the West, and then the United States went to war with itself to end that horrible practice here. And yet now, 150 years later, we're still being browbeaten about it. It's also tiresome.
Yeah, and back when I went to school, they never brought up in the history that it was African kingdoms rounding these people up and selling them off. I mean, I don't remember if it's said or just implied, but it seemed like boats of white people would just land on the shore and go out with nets and whips and round them up.
Yeah. That's one of the things that the Thomas Sowell videos that I'm being pushed for some reason on YouTube are bringing up, when he talks about how the white slave traders would just sail into a port and buy the slaves that were already there, that had been rounded up by other African tribes. He's like, people weren't enslaved because they were black. People were enslaved because they were weaker than their neighboring tribes and were captured. Yes, exactly. and and just watching the realization on these people's faces when they're hearing that, they're like, oh. And then Thomas Sowell's like, the average lifespan of a white European in the interior of sub-Saharan Africa was less than 1 year because of tropical tropical diseases.
It wasn't for lack of trying, maybe, that there weren't, but white people could not survive there. I mean, the malaria, everything, it would just wipe them out.
Yeah. All the tropical diseases and the lack of proper education in hygiene, and the fact that Europeans at the time were like obsessed with wearing 27 layers of clothing in tropical heat, and all of the various reasons that they just couldn't survive there. So yeah, it wasn't like a massive army showed up on a ship and just like, get over here, boy. It was, it's like sail into a port. We'll take that one, that one, that one, and that one, load them up and let's go.
And slavery is probably a better alternative than death. So I suppose that's where they ended up.
Yep.
But, I mean, we're getting up on an hour and we're starting to get a little spicy. So I guess.
Do we have to say the customary disavow?
Yeah. If anything we said you think is bullshit, go look it up and let us know. But
yeah, just look up Thomas Sowell.
You can be a nudist, sir.
I believe that the book that these videos they keep referencing is the book Black Rednecks and White Liberals, I think, was the name of Thomas Sowell's book that these passages come from. Yep.
Check it out. Black rednecks and white liberals. I'll have to go check it out. But up in an hour. Thanks for joining us. Sorry we had the fucked up intro. I guess I'll need to work on that if you're here at the beginning. We'll be back next week, Thursday probably. Friday I'm going to be leaving town, so if I don't make it on Thursday, there won't be a show next week. Okay. And as always, stay honky. Maybe.
We down?
No, the stream won't stop.
Can't stop. Won't stop.
Won't stop. Let me reload it.
Ben, where'd you go?